are live. Hello and welcome to His Hideaway. I am Hissy and that fella down there is Jeff. And today we are taking you on a jaunt through dear old Blighty with Asterix and Obelix and our take on their journey through it. Jeff?
Yep, indeed, we've got to Asterix in Britain. I feel once again, right at the beginning, we do have to address some racial stereotyping in here, which is a bit of a sad note. I was just say that not all British people say, "Oh, jolly good show, old chap," and a spot of milk in that, please. So
Yes.
I thought we'd get that out of the way now.
And we definitely don't all drink warm beer.
Yeah,
so,
we don't drink. We do not. Speaking of which, I have a very cold cherry beer, which I'm going to pop open for this stream. So,
I was going to have some wine with it, but I pre-read this book, and quite frankly, it warned me off.
Yeah,
which you will understand.
Yes, indeed.
So,
but this kind of looks a bit like red wine when you pour it out, anyway. So,
yeah.
See, nice.
So, despite ourselves, we do not say this.
Yes.
So this is one of those that is very fun, very little by way of like actual serious politics in it. So this should be a good stream.
Yeah.
Nice little mental break for anyone popping in. And speaking of people popping in, we've got Ring there in the chat. We've got Crit, a woof to you too. And we have got Godless Sewing. Hi there. I've seen you around on Twitter recently. Thank you for popping in. Much appreciated. And anyone else who pops in, past or present, well, past. See, we were watching that time travel stream earlier, and that's got stuck in my head now.
Yeah, which I don't think we did too bad there, considering we didn't really have a plan going into that stream. So I think we did okay, all things considered.
Yeah, you did, but that's got time. But
yeah, literally, we went live and we still didn't know what we were going to do. So
not a bad stream at all, considering that. So yeah, if you're in the chat now, if you're going to pop along in the next few minutes, if you're catching up with us in a day, a week, a month, a year or two, you are more than welcome, wherever you are, whoever you are, wherever you're watching from.
So should we jump into this then, Hissy?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, so we are we're dealing here with Julius Caesar is launching a fleet to invade Britain. Now, I think I actually might want to cover something from a historical point, just because something a couple of people said to me that week that in reality, they said that people were sort of saying that Rome wasn't conquered, Britain wasn't conquered by the Romans until Claudius. But I think what a lot of people may seem to forget is that Julius Caesar did lead a couple of expeditions into Britain, which were quite successful, and had to go back, abandon his conquest of Britain for other reasons. So perhaps, that's a little thing I might want to clear up, because a couple of people didn't realise that Caesar had actually had himself invaded Britain.
Yeah, so he actually tried it twice. First time he did it, which was, I want to say 54, 55 BC. He pretty much just landed in Kent and then wandered off home again. He only had 2 legions with him, weren't expecting him to do much.
Yeah, I think best we can tell, we think it's somewhere close to modern day Deal that he landed in Kent, but we're not 100% on that, I don't think.
I don't think we are, no. And then he came back the following year with what can only be reasonably described as hundreds of ships. I think about half a dozen legions and about 2,000, 3,000 cavalry, something daft. Like massive force. Like this force was so big that the locals weren't even going to try and stop him. They just kind of, roll out the red carpet. Here you go. Because they just waited for him. He actually crossed the Thames moving north, so he got a fair bit up.
Yeah,
And then he set up a what they call a client king
that's
before
correct.
going back to Rome. So that
I,
essentially exactly what it sounds like. It's a puppet government.
I forget the name of the chieftain, but I know that he was chief of the Trinavante tribe.
That's the
So
one. Yeah. Don't ask me to pronounce it.
yeah.
Nah.
So, but
A
now in
lot of
terms,
this
yeah.
a
Oh,
lot
sorry,
of
go on,
this as
Hissy.
well, I have to say, a lot of this from historical record we take from Caesar's own writings.
Mm.
Fair warning. Big personalities in history tend to big themselves up. Is kind of the simple way of putting that. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, the numbers are probably right. Yeah, that's probably the general gist of it. Anything that makes him look too good or too special or that closely resembles someone like, say, Alexander the Great, take it with a pinch of salt because there's probably a tiny little bit of propaganda in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's putting it mildly. But it's, I mean, from what we know of the invasion, we're fairly sure about what happened in general. So,
Yeah. Well, I guess our story starts with our old friends, the pirates, in this story, and they happen to be going up and down the English Channel, looking for and looking, I think, for some plunder and preferably to avoid running into Asterix and Obelix. I think, but never seems to quite work out for them. Whatever happens. Unfortunately, not far into it, it's this panel here, they encounter an entire Roman fleet crossing the Channel, and yeah, you kind of know what happens here. Sorry about the picture down the bottom, by the way, but it's not too much of that in this book. But that being said, I don't know if you wanted to explain this little Latin joke here, Hissy.
Let me zoom in on it. Hold on. Can we make that screen a bit bigger? Because let me grab my book and look at it.
I can do that.
You do that. That'll be easier.
Right, okay, that should be on the screen now.
Is that the O Fortunus?
Yes. I did actually. I don't have it to hand here, and I actually blooming Googled what that meant, and I'm a bit like annoyed that I don't have it to hand right now. Something to do with farmers, I think.
Yeah, the farmers would count themselves lucky if only they knew how good they had it.
Yes.
Essentially, the guy's complaining about his career choices.
Yeah.
And he's been very poetic about it. That is a line from, I think, Virgil.
I believe so.
Iliad,
Yes.
but I think it's from one of Virgil's.
Yes, I believe so. It's this is again a recurring theme going on with the pirates. Every time they get sunk, it seems that there's a this guy makes a little Latin quip and the captain gets a bit annoyed. So it seems to be a running joke, I've noticed.
Yeah. I think as well, just as a side thing, is I've just literally searched for it and found it. This line was actually the first line of the longer quote, appeared in a funeral oration to George Washington. Yes, that one.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
You know how they talk about Washingtonian ideals, the idea and Jeffersonian ideals, and this concept of the almost a gentleman farmer, if you like.
Yeah,
it's all that.
So, okay, now if I just flip over, so we see Julius Caesar standing out here. Now it says that Britain had often, what it's claiming here is Britain often helped the Gaul fight the Romans. I don't know how true that is in reality. I've got to be honest.
I mean, it's about as true as saying that the Gauls were united. It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but
yeah. And
only
he said, they're about to describe the Britons as being rather like the Gauls and being descended from Gaulish tribes that settled in Britain. They spoke the language with some peculiar expressions of their own. And here we get right into it. Oh, goodness gracious, this is a jolly rum thing. Hey, what? I'd say old fruit. I'd say rather old fruit. You can see where they're going here with the British stereotypes.
yeah, they're going straight to Eton and they're not stopping.
Yeah,
I promise you, the only people in Britain who talk like this, are frigging characters on stage and the occasional bumbling, pompous politician who shall remain nameless.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, sorry.
Sorry, you got a cough there, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry, I coughed.
Yeah. I was thinking of the other one, but sure.
Yeah, well, he's similar at education background.
Yeah,
so.
It's that background, isn't it? But that's what they're getting at.
So they're getting into this. We have the Britons are battling away with the Romans. But it said, in spite of the gallantry, the Britons had some strange customs that proved rather a drawback for the Romans. And you could see this. It said, "Oh, sorry, old chap, we got to stop."
Yeah,
what's going on? And it's like
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. We've stopped for a bit little drink of hot water and with a spot of milk and
Yeah.
So.
Do you want to explain the 5 o'clock joke? I feel like that's more your area than mine.
5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whatever it is. It's the whole. For others, partially, there's two ways that this could be looked at in this joke. First of all, there's this old joke that say 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, where the English all stopped for their afternoon tea, kind of thing. But also, it can kind of you can look this into industrial relations or whatever, when people were like working to rule or whatever. It was like, no, we don't work past the time. We don't, when one of us knocks off, we all knock off. There was kind of an attitude in the day, which I kind of miss that attitude in a way. But
yeah, I'm not old enough to remember that attitude, but I do idealize it a little bit. So that's
and then they're like, what's going on? What's going on? And they said, now they're sorry. We'll sort this out. We'll sort this out later. It's the weekend, don't you know? This is you can tell this is very much a French crack at the English here, without a doubt. Because I don't know now. I don't know if they still do, but certainly back when this was written, the 2-day weekend was not a thing in France at all. And I know, like, for example, like school children used to go to school on a Saturday in France. Now, I don't know if they still do or not, but certainly back then they would have done. So this kind of almost this concept of stopping for a weekend was maybe a little strange to the French when this was written. So this is a dig at a sort of what was seen as a British custom.
Yeah, so very British thing. We seem to be moving away from it, which is a shame. Although you will pry my bank holiday weekend from my cold dead fingers.
Yeah.
Bank holiday weekend is our 3-day weekend, which I'm sure everyone's had at least one of in their life.
We get like less public holidays than just about any country in Europe, or I think so.
Yeah.
Ones we do get, I'm not particularly willing to give up.
So that's it's very much British working culture. They're having a dig at there. It's quite nice, the thing is, as Brits, I don't know about you, but I always grew up and we've got this nice little relationship with French. We go to war occasionally, they lose, we drink.
Yeah, I will clear that. I will clear that up a little bit, just for anyone who's French. Because this is and I actually want the reason I want to say this as well is there is actually got a misconception amongst English people that every time France and England went to war that the French lost. That is not true.
It is not true at all, but I thought
It
I'd
is, yeah, it's a little, but literally it's kind of that. But I mean, I think the fact that the English people still think we won the 100 Years' War makes me laugh a little bit, because it's like, hold on, we started off owning half of France and ended up with Calais at the end of it. So who really won that thing?
Yeah. But that's yeah. Well, there's a lot of jokes, we drink warm beer, they eat frogs' legs. It's all in good fun. We're kind of, no one's punching up or down with that one, because we're sort of punching across the channel. And it is, I take it in good fun. I know some people can be quite harsh about it. For me, it's just a laugh. It's a conversation.
It's kind of like that Yes Minister joke that the real reason we got nuclear weapons isn't to protect us from the Russians, it's to protect us from the French.
Yeah.
So
knowing full well the French are never going to fire a nuclear weapon on Britain. And we're never going to fire a nuclear weapon on them. Like, something absolutely world-changing would have to happen for that to happen. But there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of it's bound up in religion and royalty and everything else, which mostly the average person couldn't give two hoots about.
Now,
but
I like
it's a fun bit of banner.
Now, I like what they say here, that accordingly Caesar devised a cunning strategy, decided to the Romans decided they'd only fight at 5 o'clock on weekdays and on all of the weekends. So he conquers all of Britain
by working overtime.
Working overtime effectively. And it's like, in the film, I'm pretty sure in the film version of this, there's a thing where they're sitting down having their cuppa or whatever, and they're playing cricket or something, and then the Romans turn up ready for fight. So, not jolly sporting of you, old chap, But,
I'm gonna let Jeff take this one.
Which is, do you want me to flip pages or
no, just this question from Ring before we move on.
Okay.
For those who are listening and not watching the screen, the question is, how much does it say about Kent that even Caesar didn't want it? Well, a lot.
Yeah, a lot. It's a bit of it's just that it's too close to France. That's all it is. No, it's Kent's all right. It's what it is.
But it's like that standing joke about the White Cliffs of Dover. On a clear day, you can see the ground. It's one of those. But you can actually see France on a clear day from the very southern points of Britain.
Indeed.
That's how close we are. So I think the channel's something. It's less than 20 miles across in it. The channel.
Well, at that point, the part of Calais, between Calais and Dover, it is very narrow at that point.
At its narrowest in the Strait of Dover, it's 21 miles across. Wait, no, it's about varies in width from 150 miles to 21 miles, depending on where you set off from.
Obviously, as crossings nearer to us tend to go to places like into Normandy, like where I'm based. Actually, strangely, we don't get any cross-channel ferries going out of Southampton anymore. They run from Portsmouth or Poole in Dorset. They tend to run from now. But anyway, so what's happened here is much like our village in Gaul, where our heroes live. There's one village at the moment that the Britons left out, holding out against the Romans. and they kind of realise, I suppose, that they can't hold out too much longer. Just so happens that one of the Britons here says, I've got a first cousin once removed living in Gaul. He's been in a village that's been holding out against the Romans for ages. He says they got a magic potion which gives them superhuman strength. So he just so happens this chap happens to be this distant cousin of Asterix. And is obviously going to go over there to to enlist the help of our friends and our of the heroes in this. So they agree on this strategy, and he slips out across the. I'm just checking. I'm just checking there's something I haven't missed here. I think I did. Yes. Is it here?
This is brilliant. The fog joke.
Yeah. Oh, there's
the
a few
build
of
up
them.
to it. Yeah.
Oh no, it's not. It's a little later. I think this is. So that's a little later. There was a joke in this that I laughed my ass off when I saw it. But so we get to our village, and there's poor Obelix is bored because the Romans are all in Britain. And if there's one thing that Obelix likes is much other than boar, it's beating up on the Romans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love the way he's sulking, going, "It's not fair. Why can't the Britons come here if they want? They want some fun with the Romans instead of taking them away from us." Like,
it's brilliant, is that? And then, of course, a Brit arrives.
Yeah, and Asterix continually trying to explain to him for the last time the Britons did not take the Romans over there. It's like
I do enjoy the next joke. It's a bit slapstick, but I enjoy it. The character's name is Anticlimax, our British cousin, or their British cousin. And in Britain, we like a good firm handshake. Right hand, straight out, Bob's your uncle. Obelix doesn't quite understand that because in France, they kind of don't do that.
Yeah.
So he gets a bit confused.
So,
to put it mildly.
This is what happens to Anticlimax here. I don't know if you can see this on the bottom panel here. I'll enlarge it a little.
This is Obelix's idea of shaking him by the hand.
This is
which
I love it. And then
it's a very literal interpretation.
Yeah. But this is the whole when he's talking about first cousin once removed or whatever, and Obelix doesn't quite get that either.
I think
don't quite talk the same as us.
From what I gather, I think it means they share a cousin. So they've both got a cousin who is the other's cousin.
They're distant really related anyway. I think is the best way to say this.
We're all distantly related to the French.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Even if your family of first generation immigrants into this country, you are distantly related to the French. You get it with the stamp in your passport that says you can come in. They give you an honorary French family. That may or may not be true. Don't quote me. But yeah.
So we flip over to our next page. So he's taking this Britisher to see the chief, and you obviously kind of they're going to agree to help them out here with the magic giving them some magic potion to take. But so they where am I? And I love the fact there's a cup of hot water with a spot of milk in it, please. Now we don't drink hot water with a spot of milk in it, okay? But you will save this to the end for that one, okay?
Yeah, we'll save this to the end.
We'll save this to the end, but
I will point out our dear friend is wearing tweed, which is a distinctly Scottish material. And again, historically accurate, it's from Caledonia. That's the name of the land.
Yep.
So the historic name for Scotland. Very beautiful place. Go there if you can. Wrap up warm. Don't get into a drinking contest with the locals.
Probably not a good idea, no. But Scotland is beautiful.
Yeah, the Scottish, great people. Absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because they may vote to go independent. No, but let's leave the politics out of it.
If they do, I might ask for asylum on the basis that I was born in Fife. So
I might ask for asylum on the basis that my other option is England.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
So
off they go. This drink gives you superhuman strength and the Romans a headache.
Yeah.
Which is a nice little foreshadowing to the other drink that's prominent in this book, which gives you a headache and the Romans seemingly superhuman strength. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So they got a barrel of Getafix has brewed up a whole barrel of the magic potion for them. And I'm just sort of and of course Asterix and Obelix are going to talk themselves very much into accompanying Anticlimax back with the potion. Obviously, you're going to need someone with a bit of strength just to lift it up. And Obelix at this is like, yeah, he's like, we're going to see the Romans. We're going to see the Romans. You see at the bottom. He is now this next panel next to it. I'm going to enlarge because it's a tiny little panel, but this one here is going to be important. Wait a minute, he says. What are these strange herbs get effects? He says, oh, they come from far away. I haven't found out what they're for yet. You can take some of it if you like, which Asterix does. That's going to become important later on.
Yeah. I do also want to look at the first panel of the next page, which gave me feels.
Oh, yeah.
Feels. Poor puppy. It's just adorable the way this dog is drawn. Yeah.
We love Dogmatics.
The thing is, Brits are traditionally dog people. He could have gone.
Yeah. He didn't have his pet passport, I assume.
Or something, yeah. Which is a shame. Maybe next time.
Yeah, it's just weird because normally he takes Dogmatics with him everywhere, which is weird. So it's kind of strange to see him leave him behind, actually, because Dogmatics generally it goes everywhere with Obelix. It's just so they're getting a farewell here. And
just quickly going to jump in. We've got Seraphim in the chat. Hi, Seraphim.
Hi, Sarah.
And thank you for that like that you said you were going to leave for us there. And that goes for everyone else as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the rest of it. Let us know you're there so we're not shouting into the void. We enjoy this, but it's much better when we've got people engaging as well. So do leave us messages there. So on we go. Loading up the ship.
Yep.
And notice poor cacophonics again. How many liars does that poor bloke go through?
I love the fact that this time they're not bashing him over the head. They've stolen his lyre, I think.
And they're broken and clean in half.
Yeah. The guy who generally does this, I don't think he's been named yet in this series, but he becomes a bit more regular. It's the village blacksmith, fully automatics. Of all of the Gaulish tribe, is the one that has it in for cacophonics.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this next comment. See, I should clarify. I am not of British descent, so I couldn't quite help dying laughing when this British chap dared to say that British food's delicious, you're sure to like it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
Indeed. And that's a little bit, as you see, that's a little bit of a two-way thing, I think, between the British and the French as well. That we're not always the biggest fans of French cuisine, and they're definitely not the biggest fans of ours, I'd say.
yeah. French
but-
food is weird and British food is bland. Is
Yeah.
generally the banter with that involves.
Well, I mean, the famous joke. I don't know if you remember the comedy sketch show in the 90s. Goodness gracious me, at all. Don't know if you ever
Vaguely,
watched
very
that.
vaguely.
Yeah, but it was sort of like group like British Indian comics or whatever, and they did a kind of like parody on like English people going out for a curry, as if there was a group of Indians in Mumbai going out for an English, and they're like and you know, and like sort of racial, you know, like racially abusing the waiter kind of thing.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Basically, all the crap poor Indian waiters have to put up with in curry houses and drunken idiots on a Saturday night. They're parodying that, and I will say actually that it has gotten a lot better as you go into Indian restaurants on a Saturday night now. I think compared to what it used to be like back in the day, it was
Although, let's be honest, the reason it's got better is because it's no longer Saturday night but early hours Sunday morning when things kick in. Because the nightclubs don't close till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then everyone piles into the curry house. Curry houses in Britain cannot argue. Everyone has a favourite. I know mine. Speaking of, I might order one.
Do you know what? I was doing debating. I think I am going to order an Indian takeaway once we're off stream.
Yeah.
So,
National dish of Britain, an Indian takeaway.
Yeah, it'd be the chicken madras is like my favourite dish in the world. So
see, I'm more for masala myself.
Yeah, I like a masala. I do like a masala.
Anyway, if a Brit ever invites you to go out for a curry, say yes. You won't be disappointed. There's very few curry houses where you'll be disappointed. At least initially.
Mind you, I will say this: of all, one of the best Indian meals I've ever had in my life. You probably will never believe this. Was in Cuzco in Peru, and he was very. The guy who owned it was very. He was quite moved when me and my mate told him, you put like 90% of Indian restaurants in Britain to shame. He was that good. So.
Oh, definitely. I know we've got, I'm in the city I'm from was known as the curry capital of the UK. In Bradford, we have some of the oldest curry houses and some of the best curry houses. So kind of spoiled. But
I actually probably should point out, for the purposes of this book, though, that this was written probably a little bit before like Indian food became a massive thing in Britain. I mean, this was the 1960s, so it would have been probably it would have been coming in. I mean, it'd been in Britain since the 1800s, but it
had, but it didn't really. Didn't really get big until after the Windrush generation. And they came over in the mid-50s? Or started to come over in the mid-50s. So very early days at this point, what they're calling English cooking is, well, you will see.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, because I think we were taking a bit of a detour there. So as they're coming across the channel here, they run into a Roman galley.
Of course they do.
And little jolly boat right ahead. I love that. So they know it's like a British thing already. And I say, and I love the fact the British go, I say, this is a bit of a bore, a Roman galley, what? And of course, Obelix hears the term bore. He's like, what, where? I love that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Romans, and it's like,
I like this one because they're talking about let's board the Roman ship. Very much in the style of what any naval battle would have looked like at the time.
yes.
It would have been, smash and board, basically. This is not cannons off the port bow, it's
Well, one of the things the Romans were actually kind of perfected was boarding of other ships. This was something whereas like a lot of the sort of Greeks and the Carthaginians, they had those these long ships, the triremes, they were good at ramming. And I think it was during the Punic War, like Romans really perfected the art of boarding. Cause it was basically to try and make sea battles as much as possible into like land battles, which is where the Romans excelled.
Yeah, so these were not naval battles traditionally. The idea was you'd get a trireme, you smash it into into the enemy's trireme, and you get all your sailors. There's this idea that the rowers on a Roman ship would have all been slaves. Highly unlikely, because the way the Roman ships worked, by the time you got all the rowers in there weren't all that much space to fit in soldiers as well. So highly likely your rowers would have been soldiers. The idea being they smash the ship in and then they board. So
almost certainly. Yeah. So they think they're going to apprehend this little ship here, and when they suddenly realise at the bottom there, Asterix and Obelix are going to board them, and what?
Yeah, that's what you think.
Of course, we know what happens when they. We don't tend to know what happens to the Roman legionaries by now.
Yeah.
And
then this happens. This is new. Very British weather.
The fog.
So
we get down here a little bit. Yeah, this is quite fun. Lot of few weather jokes in here about British weather in this book, I found.
Yeah, the Great British Summer. If you don't like the weather, don't worry. Just wait a couple of minutes; it'll change.
Yeah.
For example, all week we had blazing hot sun, and then it lashed it down yesterday, and it hasn't stopped.
I was going to say it's rain. It's kind of raining where I am at the moment. So
yeah, it's overcast here. It's threatening. And this is a Great British thing as well. We will just randomly talk about the weather because that's what we do. We're British.
Yeah. So they kind of so they get kind of lost in the fog here. And once the fog's cleared, we see the Romans here are
not in the best condition.
Yeah, licking their wounds or whatever.
And one thing
so go ahead, Tizzy.
One thing, I don't know if this is a reference to it, but I'm semi-convinced it is, so I'm going to talk about it. This top panel with the captain tied to the mast and the men around him in various states.
Yeah.
If anyone has ever read, heard of, come across a particular story from the Odyssey, which... I mean, they're not sirens, but it's definitely that kind of imagery.
This was when Odysseus had himself tied to the mast. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the one.
Because he got the rest of the crew kind of got to told to plug their ears or something, but. Odysseus was just so curious to hear the sirens, which if men heard it, they would it would lure them into where they get wrecked on the rocks, kind of thing. So that was, So he had his crew plug his ears, but because he was so curious to actually hear this for himself, that he had himself tied to the mast, so he couldn't order them off or what any, you know.
Yeah,
So
and so they couldn't hear the sirens and divert the ship. Now, it's mainly the imagery of the man tied to the mast and the men around him, obviously in various states, that got me thinking about that. But it does amuse me because the captain appears to be at least partially, not necessarily physically deaf, but at least potentially deaf to the plight of his crew in this panel.
yeah,
To start with, and it just there's a joke in there somewhere. I'm sure there is. But I thought I'd mention that because that seemed quite fun. And as usual, whenever the Romans decide they're going after our goals, the die is cast.
and the guy realizes they're going to have to go back to Britain here because he's heard about they overheard them talking about the magic potion or whatever, and so we're going to have to go back and warn the legionaries that are in Britain here that we got a problem on our hands. So then we get to the bottom of the page, and from fog we go to the other staple of the British weather.
Rain.
Rain.
When it rains, it pours.
Now this was what I was looking for, right down at the bottom, which I'm going to enlarge, and they get to, you know.
Yes.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant, and bear in mind this was written in 1965. This book. This will give you an idea of how long this was being talked about. You know what, Asterix? I think a tunnel between Gaul and Britain would be a good idea. Then people could keep out of the rain and the fog during the crossing. And the Britain goes, we've been thinking of a tunnel ourselves. We've even started digging one, but it looks like taking a jolly long time. What? So
the origins of the Channel Tunnel.
Honest, and the thing is, bear in mind, this was written well over 20 years before the Channel Tunnel was actually properly built. This is how long. Yeah, this is how long it was being talked about, though. This is what cracked me up reading that, and it just reminded me. This is how long the Channel Tunnel had been discussed. It seemed like one of those things that was being talked about for years and years and years, for decades, and it was never really going to happen. But it did eventually. But I thought that was that was quite a topical joke for the time to put in.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that one as well, and I do enjoy a nice traditional British pub, which is where they decide they're staying the night.
Yeah.
Yes, please don't ever judge a pub by the sign outside the door. Just because it says it's the Jolly Board doesn't mean that's what the food's going to be.
Indeed.
So, and the typical Obelix fits right in with the Brits here and passes the comment, name doesn't mean anything. I once knew a place called the Warm Welcome, and they, it's a good job he wasn't talking to a British person, or they'd have been complaining for hours.
Well, I will just say that there is a pub not a million miles away from me called the Welcome Inn, and I generally feel anything but any time I've went in there. So
yeah, that'll about do it.
But there are. But here we get onto some. This is here we go. We're going to get right onto some real digs at the British culinary tastes, shall we say? Here,
I would say it's.
Yeah.
I would say it's nice and cultural in Britain. Everyone knows your pub landlord. Landlord knows your usual.
Yeah.
You know you're home and you're in your own pub when you can walk up to the bar and say, all right, landlord, I'll have one of my usual. And they know what to pour you. And you're calling the landlord by name.
Yeah. When they start pouring you your beer before you've even ordered, you kind of know you're at home.
Yeah.
And it's a And so free beers while we're waiting, old chap, for our food. And
Wait.
Obelix takes a sip of the beer, and I love this. Isn't it warm enough? I can get them to take the chill off if you'd like. Yeah, not really true, but I could see why it was in the time when. Certainly, you got to put this in the context of the time that this book was written in, where it was the old English ale. You can kind of see him in one of the panels there. The old English pumps, that the cask ales, where you like that, and then generally, they weren't sort of chilled the way sort of like lagers or whatever. So.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some really nice ales.
Oh, hello, Robert. Sorry, I just realised Robert's.
Yeah?
Sorry, I wasn't paying much attention to the chat, and I just realised Robert's in there.
Well, hi, Robert.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably right about the Channel Tunnel, actually, Robert. I think I know it was being talked about for decades before it actually happened, so it was a good joke.
But yeah, we don't all drink warm beer.
No.
You can just as easily get a decent pint of lager as you can a nice ale. Try your ale. Most ale pubs in Britain. Tip for anyone who wants to come here who doesn't know this, or anyone who lives here and doesn't know this, as I didn't until recently. If you walk in and they've got an ale on tap, because a lot of them will get the ale once and then it cycles through never again, or their specials, they will let you try a bit. They will put a bit in a small glass for you and let you try it before you buy the drink to see whether you like the taste of it. I didn't know this until recently, but if you go in and ask, and most of them in pubs like that, the person behind the bar knows the drinks. So if you don't know what you want, ask them. Tell them, I've never had ale before, and they'll point you to something you'll like. They do know their stuff.
Thing was, it was always a bit of our culture we were kind of losing a little bit, but I think with a whole explosion in things like craft beers that are big now, and like beers become the in thing again, and in a way, like English ale's making a little bit of a comeback in the pubs now as a result of that. So, but we're going to get on this. So we got some Obelix gets some boar, not what he was hoping for or expected. It's a very small portion, and it's boiled boar.
Boiled meat and Brits, I swear.
Yeah.
They boil chicken. They boil beef. And it's no seasoning, salt and pepper if you're lucky.
Yeah.
I say this as someone who was born in Britain. Wow. Yeah, it's one of those things when you're born here but not culturally from here. You bemoan the state of British cooking sometimes, which is what they're getting at here. Although there is a bit of a diggler about it.
Yeah, well, they get giggle with the Romans, this little Roman patrol coming in, and they decide to sort of make themselves scarce and not draw attention, and ask them what they got in the barrel, which Asterix is warm beer.
Oh, I thought it might be Gaulish wine.
Yeah, which is what they were hoping for. This doesn't seem to like warm beer, old chap, But and then I love the fact that there's a dartboard in this ale house as well.
Yeah, nice and traditional English pub. Yeah. Dartboard, beer on tap, peanuts on the bar. Do not eat them unless you want a dicky tummy tomorrow, because you don't know where anyone else's hands have been when they go in there.
I would be wary of
the free peanuts on the bar.
It's a goddamn good job that the pubs are closed at the moment. And I will say, not most pubs don't do that anymore, but there are still some places, and I do know one or two, where they put the little bar snacks out, whether it be crisps or peanuts out on the bar.
Listen, it's not expensive. Do yourself and your stomach a favour. Go to the
Yeah.
bar and buy a packet from behind the bar. It's usually up on a cardboard sign. You can't miss it.
Yep.
Because you don't want whatever's in that bowl with those peanuts. Trust me. I say that with all affection, but this is turning into a bit of a travel show about Britain.
Now they're well, it's good. I mean, this is. I thought this one we knew was going to take us a while because all the jokes are our own kind of culture here that we've got to go through. And so, I mean, I know this is going to be a long one because we're like 50 minutes into this here, and we've barely got into we're like 16 pages into the book.
Yeah.
So, yes, moving on. So I think the Romans are kind of getting the idea that they're about hit that Asterix and Obelix are about with this barrel of magic potion, which they are determined is not going to get to this one little village that is holding out.
And then, so they decide they're going to take a shortcut to get away from these Romans. And I must preempt this following comment with, an Englishman's home is his castle.
Yes. So they decide to, get away from Roman control by going off-road a little bit. And here we go. Us Englishmen are, sorting out, weeding his garden here and sorting his lawn out.
Is it the M64? The story of the man with the house?
May very well have been. Yeah,
I want to. Yeah. So this man, doesn't want the Romans coming through his land, and there's a great story from. I think it must have been the 60s. They were trying to build a motorway, and this one fella, they went out and they bought up all the land and the houses and everything. This one fella said, "Nope, I am not moving." They tried to buy him out. They tried to sue him. They tried everything. He would not move. This was his family home. He's staying there.
Yep.
So what did they do? They built the motorway around him. And as you go on that motorway, you can still see the little white house in the island plonked in the middle of the motorway. It's brilliant. Absolutely great. It's a monument to one man's stubbornness.
Yeah. Well, that's the fact that, like, Britain, how dare you bar the emissaries of Rome, says, my garden may be smaller than your Rome, but my pilum is harder than your sternum.
Yeah.
The pilum's that big javelin type thing he's holding here. So,
and of course, your sternum is this bit.
Yes.
This bit. Either way, it's going to be icky if he decides to put that to the test.
And there's a little joke at the system here, are like the imperial system, which we hadn't quite like. Says, do you measure in meters or in feet? And like Obelix is like feet. It says, yes, you'll find it quite easy once you get your hand in. And it's like these Britons are crazy.
Yeah, I must say it's about 3.3 feet to a meter, give or take.
Yeah, like that. I mean, we by and large we're on the metric system now. There's one or two things. I mean, all our road signs are in miles and whatever, but I think France were a little, should we say, quicker to adopt the metric system than we were.
Yeah, and I will say, I grew up with the imperial system, and when I was in my teenage years, my school finally went to metric and taught us metric, and I don't know whose bright spark idea it was to do it at that particular point, but to this day, there are certain things I can only measure in imperial and certain things I can only measure in metric.
Yeah.
I know my temperatures in Celsius. I don't know any other.
Yeah.
I know my distances in feet and inches. Like a meter means nothing to me.
Now I love this next. So we're getting to the palace of the Roman governor in Londinium, which is clearly supposed to be Buckingham Palace. If you look
that's
at it.
Yeah.
Now, technically speaking, okay, this is the historical inaccuracy gripe for the stream. Londinium would not have been a city as of yet. That would have been built quite some time later. I mean, bear in mind that the Romans have only just invaded Britain here. I know they could knock up cities fairly quickly, but that's even by their standards, that's pretty.
Yeah. I mean, Londinium was established somewhere between 47 and 50 BC, so they're about 5 years earlier.
Well, actually, they're about right then, but it wouldn't have been a Roman settlement as we know it by then. So it's maybe they're not as far off as I'm knocking them for, really.
Yeah.
But
there's something I want to.
I do love the fact that they played a little British joke as well here about you mess this up, you'll be I'll have you boiled and served to the lions with mint sauce. That's again British joke.
Yeah. There was there's one thing that we have, just to give you an idea of the way London developed, because it did develop quite slowly.
Yeah.
The earliest known dated quote unquote document we have in London, earliest writing we have is from the 1st century AD. So about 100 years after this comic is based. And this is a piece of wood. You can actually see it at the Bloomsbury building in London, which they found a few years back. And they found this piece of wood when they were excavating. And it's the earliest known reference to Londinium called that. If you ever get a chance to go, it's a free thing that they put on, but you have to book up front. Do go. It's very good, and they have the Mithras Museum experience underneath as well, which is definitely worth a look if you've got any interest in Roman temples at all.
We could probably talk about it in a bit more in another stream, but Mithras was a big in Rome. That's a big religion in Rome, Mithraism. So
yeah, very big with the Roman soldiers as well.
Yeah, very much so. Well, I love the fact that we're getting into the fog coming down very fast here, and you see the three of them in the fog. And I just got to highlight this. Because it just made me chuckle. These Britons are crazy. Just what I was going to say, Asterix. Because normally that is blooming Obelix is going to say that like these Romans are crazy or what. Yeah, that is normally what Obelix says.
I do also as well. I'm sure several of our watchers will recognise the popular group in the corner there.
Okay, now they think they're running into a riot here. It's not quite what's going on. No, they're right. It's a very popular group. They're top of the Bardic charts. Yeah. This is clearly a Beatles reference. This is written in the 1960s.
I was going to say their haircuts are not very American.
This is clearly established. Yeah, bear in mind, like I said, this is 1965. This is written. This is the height of Beatlemania when this book was written. So, again, I love some of the little digs in here.
I do like the name of this pub they find, the Jug and Amphora. Probably equivalent to the Cup and Barrel, maybe.
Well, they used to actually, ironically, they used to have like little thing off licenses on pubs back in one day that were known as Bottle and Jugs. So
yeah. And this place specializes in Gaulish wines. And this, the entire sketch that follows, I think is just brilliant. And this is why I didn't drink wine on this program. You will see this because it reminded me.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna have to get a top up of beer in a minute here, see, but I'll get through this page first, all right, before I do.
Yeah. So we've got Dipsomaniacs, our local barkeep.
Yeah.
And once again, dartboard. English pub. Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Boiled boar. Obelix is like, oh god, but yeah, what he wouldn't give for a proper roast boar right now.
Yeah.
And
The French do always claim that the Brits overcook their meat and boil it
yeah.
when it should be cooked otherwise.
And I love
But
the fact that as well he's Asterix when he's about to say these Britons are crazy and Asterix cuts us drink up before your beer gets cold. I love that.
I do love that, especially after he's been told that what he's going to have with his boiled boar is hot water, warm beer, or iced red tea.
Now
Everything
again,
the opposite way you'd want it.
and again, great little one down the bottom here as well. I'll have to highlight. We have iron ingots weighing a pound, which are worth for 3.5 sestertii, each with a few each, and 5 new bronze coins, which are worth 12 old bronze coins a sestertii. This is the difference between again. This is when we're talking about the old British money.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I'd never had to grow up with because I don't understand it for the life of me.
I tried to teach myself it, and it's just really confusing. So many pennies to a shilling, so many shillings to a pound.
Yeah.
And then a crown was a slang term that became an official term for £5.
You had
And
like
then
you had like things like a 3p piece and stuff, and the heart, tutneys and it's yeah. I'm sure if you grew up with it and you understood it, yeah, you probably understood. But yeah, this is written. It was 1971. We went into a lot more decimal system, which makes a lot more sense, honestly.
Yeah. Although my dad still complains that the price of a Mars bar trebled overnight.
It probably did. Quite probably did.
They decimalised, but before, where a pound had been worth, you could buy, hypothetically, say 5 Mars bars for £1 in a pack.
Yeah.
You could still do that after decimalisation, but a pound was worth a lot less in comparison.
Yeah.
So the way it was done, essentially everything tripled in price overnight, I think. Did it triple in price, or did the...
Oh, something like that. Yeah, it was a bit of a.
It technically devalued overnight.
It was a bit of a mess. But I mean, that was before my time. I've got to be honest. It was.
Yeah.
But you just don't. I've just put it onto the next page there, Hissy. I don't know if you want to take through what you can of that to keep us going. I do need to go to the little boys' room and then fill up my beer for a ration for a second. But
this one's quite interesting, the idea of hiding someone in a pub. There's a lot of historical basis for this. A lot of people are going to start thinking of, Second World War, hiding people, that kind of thing. Yep, totally valid. What there also is, in a lot of old houses in Britain, you get these underground areas, these tunnels, and we're talking houses that go back to sort of 1800s, sometimes earlier. And that's largely because of Cromwell. And generally, there was a point in Britain where, in the space of about 150 years, if you were the wrong Christian denomination, you were royally stuffed, quite literally, royally stuffed, because the royal family wouldn't have liked you. So people would end up hiding in houses, creating, escape tunnels, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of old houses, you can still see it. Some houses, they have wood paneling, and there's like a 3-foot gap between the wood paneling and the actual wall. They would hide physically in the walls, very Edgar Allan Poe. And they would do all this. So that's kind of what this is having. I don't want to say a pop at, because it's not, but it's kind of what it's hinting at, that, the locals will hide each other from the invading force, from the, all-powerful patrols. And you can tell that the building that they're in is very old as well, just by the decor of it there. well, I suppose it's meant to be, but that style, especially in the windows, and in the, I'm going to call it a chandelier, but it's made out of wood. So don't let the trotters near that one. But and that's another British joke that I will share when Jeff gets back, because Jeff, I'm sure, will appreciate that. But that's very much, I think, a little discussion about that. And I can hear Jeff coming back, so hopefully he won't be too long.
I'm back. I'm back. You see, so I've just
Yes.
got. I did desperately need to use the little boys' room, and
I've just rambled endlessly for a bit about people hiding in cellars from Cromwell.
Yeah, well,
because I couldn't think what else about this.
No. But it's good to get. And
So,
I've got a beer. I've got to drink before it gets warm, or cold even.
Cool. So that's what this is, just talking about how the old houses are built back then. And I was going to say, because I did spot the chandelier in the top corner of this pub that they're in, not to let the trotters near that.
Yeah.
This is a very British joke. There's an old TV show called Only Fools and Horses about a pair of brothers. They're on the hustle. They're always looking for a job. And
all I'll say is just go onto YouTube and search "Only Fools and Horses" chandelier joke. That is a classic piece of humor.
It is.
Bit of British humor.
And if it auto skips and plays for you the bar fall, watch that too. Different episode, but still hilarious. And this is what you can tell about British humour. We have names for specific scenes from specific episodes of TV shows that haven't been on for more than a decade or two.
Probably on mainstream TV, but UK Gold, I'm sure, reruns it every other weekend. So so we got these Romans coming, and they're confiscating all these barrels here because they're looking for the magic potion. Unfortunately, this means the Romans have got the magic potion, so they're going to. So Asterix and Obelix are now going to have to go after this. Now you're saying all the barrels are in the cellars. Excellent. Get all the men to start tasting the barrels. They get them all up here, all regimented or whatever. All erect. They're like all on the command barrel. One barrel per legionary. Notify your commanding officer if anything tastes funny. No falling out of line. Attention. Cask. Broach. Yeah.
So into the cask by the quick left and drink.
So, smack, whack, drink.
Yeah.
Right,
and within a few panels, the singing roll out the barrel, and they're not quite so well lined up as they were.
They got quite a lot of barrels to test here. They didn't quite. The Romans didn't think this one through at all.
No, not quite. And I do enjoy the Roman drunken lisp. And of course, don't forget they're drinking red wine.
Did I skip a page accidentally? I did. Yeah.
They're drinking red wine, and these Romans are, I think the technical term for it is absolutely plastered.
Yeah. But we get back to a certain thing here. We get he found a barrel which seems to be kind of looks like red wine, but I think it may very well be our potion. We're not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, nice and traditional, a piss up ends with a fight.
Yeah.
Nice and traditional in Britain. Please don't. If you actually do come to Britain, you'll get kicked out.
No. It's not a tradition we're proud of, to be honest. But...
No, but it is one that foreigners quite clearly notice. So French having a bit of a pop there, fair enough.
So this one Roman clearly has found a barrel that was got the magic, because he's just beating the crap out of all of his comrades there,
of all of his mates there. And then I do love this one, this London double-decker chariot.
Oh, fantastic.
Number
Yeah.
4 bus.
Mm.
Another great comedy show you want to watch if you ever find it on YouTube or anywhere else, called On the Buses.
Mm.
Brilliant show. But yeah, nice and traditional red double-decker bus. If you've ever seen Doctor Who, you've probably seen them floating around London. Not floating, but you know, they're a bit heavy to float, but you know what I mean.
The old Route Master buses back in the day were, which
Yeah.
were the classic ones. And
Yeah, and it's and I quote, a God-assisted 2-ox power, numerous quarters run by Londinium Transport.
mm,
Just that joke makes me giggle on so many levels as a Brit, and I can't explain why. I'm sorry. If you've ever been to London and got on a bus, you know what that's about. We're very proud of London buses for some odd reason. And then this comment about portable roofs as well. If you don't have a portable roof in Britain, you're gonna need one to stop the sky.
And there's a lovely little joke in this panel. There. It's just a little thing. It doesn't really show up. They're going over a bridge, and I say, Asterix, I think this bridge is falling down. I love that. I love that little thing.
I love how you said it in the correct scansion.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever heard the nursery rhyme, you're welcome.
London Bridge is falling down. Yeah, that one.
Oh, great! Thank you. Suppose it's better than ringing time after time earlier. So there we go. So they're going to try and get past the sentry. The sentries are not quite their usual alert and upright selves.
Yeah, because he's been involved with the wine tasting. So this is becoming very. So they get to the cellars, and there's that one Roman who clearly has drunk the magic potion or whatever. And it's Obelix. And I think he makes a little bit of a mistake of making a fat comment at Obelix. Not a wise move.
I do think as well, though, these Romans get confused because the one at the Sentry thought there were 4 of you. Apparently, according to the Roman in the middle, there were 2 big Gauls, and we'll call him that. And then, so they're seeing double off this wine. I hope it's worth it. Although, having read this, I know it wasn't, but we'll get there.
So we get to the thing, and now they've got a bit of a problem. Well, which blooming barrel is it?
So they should taste it.
Obelix decides. It doesn't take Asterix actually long to find it. He was looking at the name on the barrel, but Obelix
tasting the wine there, and I do
can't handle his wine.
Yeah, I do like the joke here. I don't know about you. I don't know if this is a very British thing or a very Northern thing. When we talk about a drink that tastes good, goes down smooth, and you can just drink it almost like it's pop and not quite notice what's going on. But then when you go outside, the cold air hits you like a ton of bricks and you land on your backside. We call that a dangerous drink.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I think Obelix has found himself here. Nice drink, dangerous.
He's gotten a little bit. And if there also that so Asterix is wanting to look inconspicuous, not really happening here. And he's like, and then it's like Asterix tells him to shut up, and he's like, boo-hoo, you don't love me, Asterix.
Obelix is such a hilarious drunk. First he sings, then he cries.
Yeah, he's crying. I love you, Asterix. If any Roman patrol touches hair off your head.
Yes, they're not to fight because that's what drink does.
No.
And even drunk,
and now he's like.
Then he had a nice fight, and then he goes to sleep it off.
Yeah.
So Poor bloke really can't handle his drink. That's pretty typical. How you go?
Unfortunately, whilst this is going on, we got a cart thief here. So they get the magic potion only to. Of course, Obelix is feeling a bit sleepy now. He still manages to get his collection of Roman helmets, though.
And as Asterix says in Obelix's defense, he does normally only drink goat's milk. So, you know. And then the cart's been stolen. Don't drink and drive, folks, is the message of this bit. Don't drink and drive. Get a taxi.
Yeah, we got two problems now. You've got a drunk Obelix who needs to sleep it off, and a missing barrel of magic potion.
Yep. Meanwhile, the soldiers have been brought together, and this is where we first learn the dangers of Gaulish wine. Now, this is fun for many reasons, not least because it's historical.
Let me enlarge this bit, okay?
Yeah. So the comments being passed there, he's giving his speech, as it were, and he starts yelling. And just the comment from the two soldiers in the corner there, oh gosh, if only he'd shut up. Wine hangover. That's what that is. That's a wine hangover.
Yeah, that indeed.
Wine is a dangerous mean. It's a mean wine. Gaulish wine at the time. Traditionally, Gauls didn't water their wine down, and Romans did. So it was probably a lot stronger than expected, and the Romans always considered it a barbarian thing, as it were, not to water down your wine. You weren't supposed to get sloppy drunk as a Roman. That was something people who weren't Roman did. But it's interesting that they were drinking Gaulish wine and they've all now got hangovers. When, to be honest, in this era, they probably drank more wine than water. And that was probably a good thing too.
Well, they found the pub to which it belongs to. Asterix and Obelix been chasing around Londinium, no sign of their barrel, and now they come back to find out pub's gone, Obelix is gone, because Obelix is too blooming wasted to put up any kind of a fight. So,
see, now if these Romans had have had any sense at all, what they would have also done while they were in that pub the following day, while they're hungover, what would they have done, Jeff? Hair of the dog that finger. It's a nice traditional British joke that says if you have one drink of whatever got you drunk the night before, you'll be all right for the day if you're hungover. Do not recommend.
It's that's what we call an old wives' tale in Britain. Okay,
it works.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
No.
It just gets you back to the same state you finished the night before.
Two myths. There's that one, and the other myth I'd like to dispel right now. No, a full English breakfast does not cure a bloody hangover.
It kind of does. It will clear the alcohol out of the system.
Clear your alcohol out, but it's not a great hangover cure that people make it out to be.
If you can stomach it, it will soak up all the alcohol. And if you can't stomach it, well, it will come back up.
You'll throw up all the alcohol. So yeah.
So in that way, it will sober you up. Whether it gets rid of the hangover is a completely different kettle of fish. Go on then, Jeff. What's your go-to hangover cure?
I found waking up drunk was the best thing.
Fair. For me, and let's see how many people I can gross out with this. Pickled gherkins. Get the jar, eat one of the gherkins, and take a mouthful of the liquid out of it, the juice. If you can stomach that, you will sober up. If you can't, you will sober up.
Actually,
it would be a bit more painful.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a hangover cure, but drinking some of those vitamin drinks like Baroccas and help a bit. I wouldn't necessarily call it a cure, but
It's not a cure. It's a
it's not a. It's more of a treatment than a cure.
The only cure for a hangover is either to keep drinking or sleep it off, unfortunately.
Yeah.
As most of
Yeah.
us who've ever had to work early the morning after a late one will be able to attest. We've all done it at least once. There's no denying it.
Yeah. I used to do it fairly well, not such work up late, but I used to do it fairly regularly, come in with a hangover. But find the older you get, the more the less able you are to sort of soldier through these things. So it's probably best not to get completely flipping wasted. Which is ironic because since we've been on lockdown, I swear I'm bordering on alcoholic right now. So
you don't get a hangover if you keep drinking.
Yeah,
it's nice and traditional. My dad swears by a pint of water before you go to bed. If you're sober enough to remember to drink it. My mum always used to swear by a bacon sandwich. I was about to say, obviously not suitable if you're Muslim, but if you're Muslim, you're not trying to cure a hangover, so ignore that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a myth as well. So, but that could be for another stream. So I think that's a yeah.
Yeah.
People think there's practicing Muslims who don't drink. Then yeah, you're not supposed to, but I know practicing Muslims that do. So that's all I'll say.
I used to work in a casino. Believe me, I know. Some of our best players were Muslim.
So we got this. Where are we now? He's in the Tower of Londinium. Yeah, very obvious.
Reference there.
He's woken up with a hangover and there's Obelix and
yep. And
he's got a mouth like sandpaper, as he quickly points out, which you will do when you wake up of a hangover.
I think it was Kafka who wrote the best description of a hangover I'd ever heard, which was, he said, it felt like a rat had waited until the early hours of the morning, climbed into his mouth, and then died there. Which, yeah, pretty much. Especially with wine. I cannot emphasize enough how mean of a drink wine is. It's cruel.
Yep, it can be.
And I know from experience. I used to be really good until I was about 22. I didn't get hangovers.
Yeah.
Now, glasses of wine and I'm
So Obelix is busts out of here. You know what happens with doors with him. Goes down to the bottom, and it's like, I think he came out the wrong gate. He goes out of gate 1, just as Asterix is going into gate 2, and Asterix going up to the top. Poor bloody Roman guards.
Yeah, poor bloke.
And
this door, Obelix comes out of as well. Traditionally, when someone was sentenced to the tower or sentenced to death, they would be brought by boat to this entrance. So it's actually a fairly historically accurate drawing of the building itself and the fact that it's on a river. So
yeah, I mean the actual Tower of London itself wasn't. I think it was William the Conqueror that built that, if I believe.
I mean, no one's claiming the tower was around then, but it's a nice.
I mean, there's a. Oh, where are we? I think I skipped a page, and yeah, I did. That was unintentional. Yeah, I believe it's William the Conqueror that built that. I think it's the gate you're referring to. Is that Traitor's Gate? Is it that
is Traitor's Gate? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one that's called.
One called
the Traitor's Gate, which is on the water. It's quite it's the famous gate in the Tower of London, anyway. And they've escaped.
And of course, traditionally, Obelix is complaining that he got drunk, apologizing for getting drunk, and they've escaped. And the governor is not a happy bunny. I'm going to say that in a very parlance, he's not a happy bunny.
No, and then now there's a problem of locating this particular barrel of magic potion, and so they're going around to various establishments or whatever to find out which has got this. Onto couple, they haven't found it yet, and now we're in, and right at the bottom here, they're out into the suburbs.
Just before we get there, I just want to point something out about how bad English food is. Obelix refused boar. Freely offered boiled boar, and he said, "Nope, let's go."
Yeah. And if Obelix isn't going to eat boar, you know the cooking's bad.
Bad. So yeah. And then of course we have the terraced house gag.
Well, it's this sort of like the suburbs, really, in a sense, and the way this is, though.
Yeah, but the way they're all sort of placed together, you can say it's a gag on the basis that British houses down the street all pretty much look the same. It's very manicured lawn. Everything looks the same. It's very upper middle class, we'll say.
Yeah. I mean, you got to bear in mind, if this is just outside London, this is probably around the time that like towns like Milton Keynes were being built. If you which is like for people who don't know. I mean, that back in the day, I don't know what it's so much nowadays, but back in the day, that was like a fairly sort of new town, and it was really held up as it was the epitome of British middle class, sort of.
So now it's the Florida of Britain is the only way I can describe it. It's where English people go to retire. And that's the polite way of putting it.
Less sunshine, though.
Yeah. So everything's laid
sunshine,
out.
No beaches, but otherwise. They're going out into their. I love that. I say, don't you know Britain's hut is his castle? And now, okay. One little thing here, Hissy. Now I know this was set way before the Iceni Rebellion.
Yeah.
But look at the way this is. Calm down, Boadicea. Hissy, go.
Okay, so Boudica.
Yes.
Was the last, shall we say, big name rebel against the Romans in Britain.
Yeah.
Very famous warrior queen. And she did not take kindly to them just showing up on her doorstep. She fought back. Now, it does amuse me that the husband sits down and reads his paper, reads the Times of all things, which I'm sure you've got a comment on, Jeff. And she's the one who decides, nope, they get out. She's queen of her castle. He might be king of the castle, but she's ruler of the roost. Which is, nice and traditional, just the way it should be. He wears the crown in the relationship, and he's got her permission to say so.
I will say, obviously, I mean, I guess I didn't have much know what else to call a British woman in this, but I will actually say, as Hissy pointed out, it is actually the real name is Boudica, not Boadicea, which was common, but I will say this again, 1960s, this was written, that was a kind of very commonly how that name was pronounced, but it is one of those things that is
it is spelled as Boadicea, but the spelling is mangled. That's not how you spell Boudica. And also I do like the fact that the way she's drawn very much reminds me of I can't decide if it's Peggy Mitchell or it's not quite Peggy Mitchell, is it? It's very traditional, mumsy, She's a very stereotypical English housewife. to put it
Indeed.
gently. Every house
Indeed.
has a bless this house sign. Of course they do. Above the mantle. Nice and traditional again. Flowers everywhere.
They realise they got the wrong house here, so they go next door, which turns out to be this is the guy they're looking for, I believe, who stole the barrel. Well, it's not. He hasn't got the magic potion actually, but turns out he flogged it to someone.
I am just going to point out as well, he does appear to be a Viking, judging by that helmet.
A little bit, yeah. He's got a horned helmet, but
yeah, I think that's what it's looking at.
That's a very and again, horned helmets and Vikings, not really a thing. Despite what I think that's pretty well known by now, though, that the horned helmet thing with Vikings is a bit of a myth. But I am. That being said, I hate the History Channel for creating a whole new bunch of bloody popular myths about Vikings that aren't true. So thanks to that series.
Yeah. So, but I thought I'd point that out because don't forget, this is the man who stole the cat, and we all know what people think the Vikings were.
Well, technically, the term Viking means raider. So, So, which we could probably get onto this a bit next week because I believe on next week our book is Asterix and the Normans. So that could be.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot to say on that one, I think.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not actually sure that this is an Asterix book I've actually read. Now, I know I've read most of them, but I'm not sure that I've actually read this one next week. So it's going to be interesting.
So, do you want to explain the significance of our British gentleman reading the Times here? And what that is about him and his household?
Generally, that's a bit of a symbol. The Times is generally has been for many, many years, generally a very, very conservative newspaper. Especially for now, it's been part of Rupert Murdoch's empire for quite some time. But this would have been even prior to Murdoch. This was a very much an establishment newspaper that I guess more like I'd say the real upper class people tended to read the Telegraph in Britain or the Financial Times, but then the Times would be what the sort of more conservative middle class gentlemen would have read.
We call it the aspirational middle class. Is probably the nicest way of putting it.
Yeah.
I
will say that out of the papers Murdoch owns in the UK, the Times is the only one that actually does attempt some kind of serious journalism. I will give it at least a little bit of credit in that respect, even though I don't particularly like its political leanings. It's maybe the respectable face of Murdoch's empire, but only that it's not as sensationalist as like the Sun or the some of his other.
Wasn't it always, at least until I think the mid-80s, kind of known as the mouthpiece of the British government as well? A little bit.
I'd say maybe arguably the Telegraph as well.
The Telegraph and the Times always seem to get the stories about MI5 first.
Well, the big irony, one of the big ironies of history is that the Sun newspaper came out of the old Daily Herald newspaper, which was very much a Labour Party paper. I mean, it was actually partly owned by the Labour Party, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that, but I believe it was partially owned by the Labour Party. Murdoch acquired the rights to Daily Herald. I mean, one of the things that kind of came out of it was the Sun newspaper. So that which became very, very obviously a very right-wing conservative, and yet ironically, one of the other papers, the Daily Mirror, used to be an awful was part of the Rothermere Empire. It was it was the like the Daily Mail, and I mean, like people sort of know about the Daily Mail in the 30s for supporting Oswald Mosley's fascists. The Mirror was just as bad, but in a weird accident in history, it's like the Sun's ended up as the right wing, very conservative, and the Mirror's ended up very, very pro-Labour. So it's a bit weird how some of the British tabloids have.
I do have to say as well, if we're going to, as we have explained, who the average reader of the Times is, we must also explain that if you ever do meet a Brit, you can always tell if they're a Sun reader by two very clear things. They will have red lips and black fingers because they go as they're reading, which essentially is a little bit of a dig at the fact that the average reading age for the Sun newspaper is about 7, and that's reading level. It's pitched at, I think, to be comprehensible to 7 or 9-year-olds, something like that.
It's yeah. Well, I mean, the Sun's a vile rag, and I sincerely, it's one thing. I don't like anyone to lose their job, but God, I hope that newspaper goes out of business so badly. And
yeah. So,
but anyway, we're getting onto our own political biases a bit there, I think. But
yeah, but my dad would never forgive me if I didn't make that joke about the Sun. Although they did do a study once on the Sun newspaper, and they did say it was about you had to have the reading comprehension of an 8-year-old to understand it, or something like that. It's pitched at very, very low education.
The Sun, I'll just say this, it positions itself as in its own propaganda as the newspaper of the working class British people. It's a newspaper also that's aimed at working class British people, but it's not got the interests of working class British people at heart at all. And but I will say this: compared to the Daily Star, the Sun is like Pulitzer Prize material compared to the Daily Star. So
there's only one day it's acceptable to buy the Star, and that's on National Day for the list of the horses.
Yeah,
even then, to be honest, I'd buy the Mirror first.
I would go off on a massive rant about the Daily Star if we continued down this path. To be honest,
so let's not.
Let's not.
Yeah.
No.
British newspapers, it's an entire class system all its own. You can tell a lot about a person by what paper they read, what car they drive, and what beer they drink.
Yeah.
In Britain.
So we better get back to where we are now. They're tracking down the barrel. So they're going around to a few pubs or whatever. They haven't quite found it.
I wonder if this is the origin of the pub crawl.
Quite possibly. Now we go to the Dog and Dukes. I like that. The Dog and Dukes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going around to and this is where we get some bit of fun with this as well, because what's coming up now I really like.
Oh yeah.
Looking for this but he said, well, he's sold his barrel to a Camalodium team, and he says, and Asterix nods a bit. He's up Camalodium. Well,
sport is the second religion in this country.
Yeah.
It kind of goes cricket, rugby, football in various orders depending on where you're from.
Yeah, indeed.
So nice and traditional that the home pub makes sure the team are well lubricated.
Indeed. So there's a big sports event going on here.
And we learn as we go through that this is a game of what appears to be rugby. Now, is it league or is it union?
I would say it's probably union. However, I like the joke here. Because there is maybe I don't know. This might be there is a historical aspect to this. There was a Roman game called now I might be butchering this, called Harpastum, which involved a ball, and it's an early variant of football, and the game of football, like rugby, is a variation of the game of football. These are all variants, but there's actually a Roman variant called Harpastum, which from what we kind of know about it, it was a pretty it was a pretty violent game involving people getting the ball from one end to the pitch or something to the other. From what we know about it, very possible that the Romans brought this into Britain, and we don't know. We don't know for certain. We don't know. We don't know that it's possible. However, I think if anyone wants to know about something called harpastum, I would encourage you to go on YouTube, check out something called. Now I'm going to be careful how I pronounce this. Calcio Storico, which is the only modern interpretation you put it on. Let me put this in the. I'll put it in the chat in a second. I'm just sorry because I'm just in my. I'm just in my little my area history here. See sports history. So
this is why I'm staying very quiet.
Yeah. So there's something called Calcio Storico, or it's also known as I'll put the name of it in the chat, or Calcio Fiorentina, which is just a weird sports tournament that happens every year in the city of Florence, and it is one of the most apparently the rule of the game is you get the ball in down the other end of the field. That is the sole rule of the game. So you can imagine these things are just absolute bloodbaths, and
whereas in rugby, it's no biting, no.
Yeah, pretty damn much. As long as you get the ball down the other end of the pitch in Calcio Storico, which is similar to what we know of this Roman game. Is probably the. I might show you something after we go off stream about it, Hissy. So
yeah, although I do have to point out, if you play rugby for any length of time, the no biting rule stops applying to you because you will lose a few teeth.
God damn. I believe it or not, I lost more teeth playing field hockey than I did playing rugby. And I played rugby. Yeah,
I
played
got
rugby for a while.
Rugby, I never lost any teeth.
Yeah.
There was a time long ago when kids played it too. And we were rough. We used to go full pelt at it. And I ended up with a dislocated shoulder and cracked some poor kid's ribs. We were 8. So, it's a nice traditional game for the rowdy kids in the playground.
And I will just say that our two teams here, I will just say so as well for the historical basis. We have Camulutinum and Durover. Basically, I think Camulutinum was Colchester, and the other one, I believe, is close to present day Canterbury. So there's a little, so they're saying this is Colchester versus Canterbury is what this is. And I'll show you this again. This is a sports joke near the bottom here. They're bringing out the sacred goose and a sacred hen. This is a French rugby joke, or even a French sports joke in Holder, but very prevalent to rugby. If you look at sports jerseys, the French national team in whether it be in soccer or rugby, you'll see that they've got a cockerel on that, and quite often you'll see that there's a cockerel put out on the field or something near the start of a game. So that's quite a French little joke here, and so they're trying to track down. They've been bought here for a reason, that they're tracking down the potion, by the way. So the game gets underway. I gotta admit, going into this, Obelix he sees the violence of this game. He's actually found something in British culture he kind of likes. He says, "Oh, we must take this game back to Gaul."
And so the Six Nations was born.
Yeah, but indeed. But you actually, like I said, you actually just see the way they're bundling on one top another here. It's way more, probably, it looks way more like the actual historical version of football that the Romans would have played, where it was just a
real rugby isn't quite that vicious, although it's close.
Rugby union. I mean, rugby union's pretty. Yeah, it can be. I mean, rugby league as well. I mean, that could be a whole stream in itself talking about that for me.
If Rick's still in the chat, he'll appreciate this. I sat him down and made him watch a rugby match while he was here, and he was stunned to find that these guys don't wear any padding, because one of them got knocked clean out on the pitch and got a broken nose. Within 10 minutes, he was stood up and back playing. And Ring was horrified.
They do wear pads, just not like the head pads and stuff like that. So
they wear, you get a rugby shirt. They get something small under there, but nothing.
They do. There is shoulder. They probably find they do wear a form of shoulder padding. Which were you? What did you watch? A rugby union or rugby league?
I can't even remember. I just know it was a rough game. I watched the game and it was rough.
I'm gonna say, being from Bradford, being that you're in Bradford, I'd be disappointed if it wasn't rugby league. It's a big deal there, I think. From what I understand.
They were until the team moved.
You got the okay. So you got this one player here who's gotten a bit of an injury. Gets a little bit of the water here, and he is up and away. Gets the ball and smacks every player from the other opposing team out of his way, and it's like, okay, that's our magic potion.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I apologise for the. Sorry, I just realised something down the bottom. I apologise for in advance. There's a little joke about where the ball lands. I don't think we need to see it, do we, Hissy?
No, I don't think we do.
No, I'll skip the page. Okay. I'm trying to keep any views of characters like that down to is it important, or is it a joke worth discussing?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it was that big of a deal, but
but again, with these stories, they happen. We've discussed it at length in various streams.
Indeed, yeah.
Gladiator, if you want the really in-depth version, it's on my channel, and you can find it in the history there. So off they head down to the river. Now, I am reasonably convinced that this may be the origin of the boat race. The boat race. Two boats going down the river.
So where are you on this now? I'm just getting caught.
So just after the rugby match.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm pretty darn sure. Yes. Okay. I remember this now. Yes, you got two. So Asterix and Obelix got on their boat or whatever.
So what happens in Britain is it's nice and traditional every year. The posh sods down south go to a river, get all dressed up in their old school clothes like they think they're extras out of a Pink Floyd music video, and watch kids who were going to the universities they went to row down the river and cheer on their own schools. And for some reason, this is televised, even though less than 1% of the population went to either of these schools.
No, okay. This is a.
Usually a bit
I'll try
of
to get a little bit more. This is the annual boat race between Oxford University and Cambridge University.
I was trying to
Which
avoid
is,
naming them, but
I suppose. Yeah. Well, I suppose to anyone, like American might get the idea that college sports and college rivalries are quite a big thing in America. They're not so much here, except with the two old boy kind of
yeah,
like
the Oxford.
universities, at Oxford and Cambridge. They play. There's a trio of things they play. They do every year. They play a soccer match, which isn't a big deal, really. They play a rugby match, the varsity match, which is a big deal. And then they have their rowing race down the Thames, the boat race, which is a big deal to them.
Which is massive. Several of our Olympic team rowers have been started because they were rowing for their university in that race.
Yes.
And it's kind of how the Olympic team generally gets picked.
And I will say as well that one person perhaps people will know of that actually participated in the boat race, although he didn't win the year that he was in it, was Hugh Laurie of Blackadder and obviously House fame. He rowed for Cambridge in the boat race, but that year, unfortunately, their team didn't win it. But yes, Hugh Laurie participated in that.
Yeah. To be fair, it is usually quite a close race. It is usually fairly close. It's very rare that you can tell the winner by the halfway point. It's an interesting spectacle to watch for sure. If only because of the sheer comedy of manners of some of the people commentating and some of the interviews they do.
Now, I do love the fact that they're going up against this Roman galley that's got a weapon on board, and I do love this little Latin thing there that they actually explain is oculus tor.
Bullseye.
Bullseye. They got them. So got a bit of a problem here. Asterix and Obelix's boat. I mean, they all get to land fine enough, but the barrel with the magic potion in is gone. The magic potions is kaput. They've had enough.
I do
done.
just want to point out, as that happens, the name of the governor of Britain, Encyclopedicus Britannicus.
Oh, I love it.
Are a very reliable fellow who can always be trusted to give you the proper information.
Yep.
And I just thought I would make that comment and then move swiftly on.
Yeah, we don't even need to explain that one because I think everybody knows Encyclopedia Britannica. So, but we get there. Little jokes about the rain again. As they're going to this one little village that is so they get through to this one little village that's that is still holding out. It looks like Obelix is added a few more Roman helmets to his collection en route as well. But they got a problem here. No magic potion. We're done. We're screwed. The Britons are like we're done. Asterix hits upon an idea here. Saying like, I think I know how to do it. It says we're not beaten yet. It says I found some herbs that I bought from home in my pocket. We can use them to make the magic potion. Remember earlier on we said that Getafix had hold on. I skipped accidentally.
Getafix the leaves. And I should point out, it is worth noting that the chief of this tribe they've gone to visit has quite the interesting name with quite the interesting story.
Oh, his
name is Chief My Kingdom for an Os.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Which,
you know Shakespeare?
Knows Shakespeare, I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
Yep.
And his right-hand men over optimistics and mechanics. Who mechanics finishes work early on Friday and charges time and a half after that.
So Asterix has got these herbs that are these will help. It will help make the feet. So he's going to try and brew the magic potion. And Asterix is like, Obelix is asking, "Do you know how to make the magic potion?" He says, "No, I don't." He says, "But like, I think he's thinking we can give him a bit of a placebo here."
Yeah.
Like that's what he's thinking. So they bring in the cauldron, hot water. Asterix puts the herbs into the pot. Now, hold on, where are we? I'm just checking. I've got all the way down there because I thought I missed something. There we are. So they're brewing up, and it's like, "Can I have a spot of milk with my magic potion or whatever, please?" And they'll bring their cuppers in, and so we're getting to the bit now. Now the Romans are getting ready to attack, very confident.
Yeah. And again, the formations are reasonably. I mean, you can find examples of them. So I do like to point out when they get things like that right, because it is quite fun.
Yeah.
And the Romans I do like in the circular formation, which is not an official formation, but they're all whispering about the fact that they know that Gaul.
They're all having a huddle and they don't like what they're hearing here.
And it's nice, and this reminds me of being in school. So you're sitting in class, you're chatting away, waiting for teacher, and teacher stood there, and eventually the teacher says, "And if you're all quite finished."
Yeah,
Quite does not mean the same in British English as it does in American English. In American English, it is very, as in it's a word of emphasis. Quite has a connotation of, it's a bit backhanded, it's a bit snide in British English.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a hint to, get a move on.
Yeah. So they approach this thing, and it was Obelix kind of comes out leading the charge, but the Britons are they're right behind him, and they just plow through the Romans. Absolutely batter them. This is it. So effectively, they give them such a bashing that the Romans I think they're going to go home and try another day, and Britain is liberated. And said thanks very much to this, and says and Asterix has a confession to make that it wasn't genuine magic potion.
And the chief knows this; he's aware.
Yeah, I guessed as much. But brew gave our warriors courage, sends us home. So, make it our national drink, old boy. So it's a goodbye to anticlimax, and they'll be off on their merry way. And Obelix can't wait to get home, probably to Dogmatics and some proper wild boar.
Yep, because they were offering to throw a feast for him, but if he has any more boiled boar, he will probably boil his own head, because you would want to, after
so they
a while.
rush back across the channel, and at the pirates' expense once again.
Although this one's quite fun because the pirates try and get out of their way and end up running aground.
Yeah.
Which is just, this amuses me. And then they're back in the village as usual. Cacophonix is tied up, gagged this time as well.
Yeah.
A proper boar.
And he's a proper boar, and he's reunited with Dogmatics. And this last couple of panels here, it just says, "Those herbs you picked up at your house or left. What were they?" He says, "Oh, they're from a plant that comes from far off barbarian lands." He says, "What's it called?" "Oh, tea."
Tea.
Tea.
Nice national drink.
So there we go. Why the British drink tea?
Yes. Because it gives you a nice stiff upper lip, British stiff upper lip.
Yes.
And it'll get you through anything. Nice cup of tea can fix anything.
So there we go. There we go. That's why we kept the Romans at bay for another 80 odd years after Caesar. So
Yeah.
there we go. I'll just remove that from the screen then, Hissy, and put us back on. What did you think of this one?
I like this one. I like the affectionate little digs. I like the laugh. And as much as it sounds like I've complained a bit about Britain in this stream, it's all meant in good humour. It's all in good faith. There's a very British sense of humour that says you kind of have to have a pop at yourself a little bit. Because if we don't, everyone else will, so we may as well get in there first. So I do mean well, and although if I've said anything that anyone was offended by, apologies and all that, I'll pull an Anne Robinson. But it's just the sense of humour. I like this country. I live here. I like it ish. I liked it better a few years ago, but let's stay off politics, eh?
Indeed.
But I like this story. It's nice. It's almost affectionate in the ribbing.
It's
like it is. I think the best way to describe UK-French relations is probably sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
We have a dig and a joke and and all the rest of it, and maybe call a few names, this, that, and the other. But we love each other, really. Maybe you'd have to get us drunk to make us admit it. It's that kind of a relationship. At least that's how I view the British relationship with the French.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I see it as maybe a little more antagonistic from our side than it needs to be.
Yeah, but our side, as soon as we get a few drinks in us, we'll fight anyone. So.
But I that's what I did. Yeah, I mean, okay. A lot of the stereotypes of Englishmen all talking rather posh and drinking tea and a lot of that in there, but again, all good-natured.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no stereotype there that we've seen that doesn't have a grain of truth in it. They're all very. I know, growing up in Britain myself, I recognise those stereotypes in people I know. Not so much in the people saying what and drinking tea, because I never hung around with people that posh, but definitely, the rugby matches, the landlord pouring the drink, all that, the darts boards. Yeah. I know. I can name 3 pubs off the top of my head that are all, the Angels Rest, the Travelers Rest, the Dog and Duck. That those pub names are all very traditional as well. So it's nice.
It was a nice one. My only one complaint with the whole book: we needed more dogmatics. That's the only thing.
And the thing is, as well, we're British, and I'm from Yorkshire, and in Yorkshire, it's traditional. We love dogs. We don't like dogs. We love dogs. Dogs, cricket, and rugby. And dogs, the traditional Yorkshireman is a middle-aged man in a flat cap with his whippet at his heels. And we kind of do play up to it here in Yorkshire because we love dogs. But I do know, just as a country, I think we are a nation of dog lovers. We really are. So it would have been nice to see Dogmatics come and see us. We may not have let him leave. So that's probably fine, to be fair.
We'll just say he didn't have his pet passport yet. So,
yeah. I am one of those Brits who will affectionately threaten to, keep your dog if you bring it to see me. So, because all dogs are cute and adorable, and I want to pet them. So,
I'll say Dogmatics is my favourite cartoon dog, anyway, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think he's. Who are your top 3 cartoon dogs? Dogmatics, Scooby. I'm struggling to think of a third.
It's not that many to think of, really.
Clifford.
Or Brian Griffin, possibly.
Yeah, not so much for me. Anyone who learned to read in Britain knows about Clifford. That was a cute story. The idea of this dog that grew as big as a house.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, I remember that story now. Yeah.
the big red dog.
Mm.
Biff and Kip had a dog as well. Can't remember its name. Little black floppy thing that looks somewhere between a Labrador and a Beagle.
Mm.
But yeah, this may turn into a stream where I just sit and talk about dogs for 10 minutes.
Yeah. I was just saying, actually, I just realized we've been going over 2 hours already.
We have.
This was a long one. Now, okay, mainly because I think there's a lot of British humour in this. But well, hopefully hopefully we'll be back next week with Asterix and the Normans. I don't know what your works.
Well, next week I'm on a late shift on Sunday, so we may end up having to shift to Saturday or miss a week. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll work something out, I'm sure. And we will let everyone know in the usual way, Twitter.
Yeah.
So do follow us on Twitter. You will find my cards in the description below. Click it. It takes you to another page with my photograph on it, and all the icons are for their website. So by all means, click the one you want, and you can follow me on that website. Please follow all warnings, tags, all the rest of it, profile information. That's what it's there for. The link to Jeff's channel is also down there. If you're not following him already, please do, because he is brilliant. Anything else you want to talk about before we head off?
I should have something. I think it's 12:30 p.m. Tuesday UK time. I've got a friend of mine who's a Christian friend of mine who's going to be coming on. We're hopefully going to have a little back and forth between just about beliefs and whatever, but nothing too antagonistic. We hope nothing too, you know. I think we want to have more of a conversation rather than one of these atheist versus Christian type debate things. I think they've been overdone to death in the community. Really, I understand why we got to keep having a lot of these same arguments over and over again, but it's not necessarily the sort of thing I want to do. But having just a good friend and a mate of mine who's hopefully just going to have a friendly chat for about an hour or so about beliefs, and hopefully atheist pastor Chris is going to be joining us for that as well. So
that should be fun. I'll keep an eye out for that. I'm sure anyone who wants to follow you can find it, and if there's anyone in the comments, they may want to drop a link. I don't think there is at this point, actually. I think people are just listening. We've got a few watchers, but most are listening, so thank you very much for your time. We know we've talked for a long time, so thank you for sticking with us through all this. I currently don't have any major things going on at the moment. I'm focusing on my fan fiction this month, amongst other things. Largely, there's a lot going on in the world, so I'm just taking a step back. And that's where we're at with that. So we will be here next week or the week after or whenever we're here. You will find us. We'll make sure we're here, and we give you plenty of warning. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the warnings. It's the little bell button next to the subscribe. Make sure you click on that. And I'm pretty sure that's everything. So if Jeff is ready, I think we are all good to wrap up.
No, I'm done.
Cool. So take care, be good, and if you can't be good, be careful.